Alright, well, after that brief history of everything that ever was, I needed to rest my throat a little bit, so I've gone in and I've changed my filters, and hopefully I won't have to talk at this intensity the entire time. Hopefully I can talk more like this. It still seems to be getting picked up. Hopefully it won't get cut off, and I won't be shouting at the microphone, and things should be okay. I'm talking about the monk today. Not specifically about the monk. We're going to go into archetype creation. I'm not good at it, but I want to tackle what is in my head and in my notes, becoming one of the more complex systems, or at least I have found myself favoring the monk in my system a lot because I'm ending up creating this intricate system of dojos and schools and temples that all I've been reading a lot of kung fu stories lately, reading the comics, watching old kung fu movies. I came across The Killer Meteors from 1976 recently. Holy cow, that movie was bad, but I love it. It was one of the first time I saw that. Uh, my best friend had taken me into his house after I got kicked out of my own, and this was a few weeks after that, but maybe just a couple of weeks. But we stayed up all night going through his really terribly bad kung fu movie collection. He had a stack of these like 99-cent kung fu movies from the 60s and 70s, and we stayed up all night. We watched like 3 or 4 of them before just going out and putting out some applications in places. That didn't end up going anywhere, but the kung fu stuck with me. Not enough to get off my fat ass and start practicing it, but enough to inspire. Enough to inspire. So that kind of thing, and like uh, Jade Empire, one of the most underrated of the BioWare classic BioWare games. Like people will look at me when I bring up Jade Empire and they won't know what I'm talking about. And that makes me pretty sad actually, because it was a really really good ass game, man. I enjoyed it. And it was this whole kung fu wuxia, I think is wushu wuxia adventure thing, and it was a little bit crazy, and it was marvelous. It was one of their first attempts at making their own story, if I remember right. Let me hit up Google on this so I'm not just talking out of my ass. If my browser will come up. Come on, browser. I know I'm doing a lot of stuff right now. Computer. There you go. Let's see what Wikipedia has to say about BioWare. Alright. By release, they had Shattered Steel, which was a mech game, I believe. Yeah, I remember a friend of mine had this. It wasn't very great, but it exists. It was an action game, which is not what you'd think of when you think of BioWare, of all things. Apparently, they were the developer on on MDK2, which I did not know about and I've never played. So that's exciting. I don't know if they were the developer for a port of it or if they. No, looks like they were just in it. They were it. They did it. The license seemed to go to them. Published by Interplay, that would be why. Okay. And then we got into the D&D era where they got the license from Wizards of the Coast or from to do. Well, they had already had Baldur's Gate, Tales of the Sword Coast, Baldur's Gate 2, and they were the D&D developer that everybody knew of for a while. And of course, Knights of the Old Republic, but Oh, right, Knights of the Old Republic 2 wasn't by them. That was Obsidian. Yeah, neat. But Knights of the Old Republic was the first on their Odyssey engine, which was also uh, used for Jade Empire. It was really rad. I enjoyed it quite a bit. It was a little more active than the Knights of the Old Republic was, which, of course, then oh my god, BioWare worked on a Sonic game? Pardon me a second. Wikipedia, you've gone too far. Oh yeah, that's right. There was like a turn-based Sonic RPG? What the heck? How does nobody talk about this? Huh, weird. Anyway, Kung Fu, I like it. It's pretty rad. Obviously, BioWare had nothing to do with Kung Fu, except for their brief foray into doing a Kung Fu based game, which honestly, I would like to see them do a new Jade Empire instead of making really wonky Mass Effect sequels that nobody asked for. Um, what was I talking about again? Um, the monk. We're gonna make the monk. I've been playing a monk in my weekly D&D game with my group, and I like it. I like it a lot, but there are some things about it I'm not too fond of. Um, I haven't filled out all of my information on this. The chart's still pretty much empty, but this is all copy and pasted in information from the SRD. I believe I might have changed a few things in here, but generally speaking, everything is the same as out of the SRD for 5th edition. It's a 5th edition game that we're playing. And one of my biggest problems with the monk is that it's not the monk specifically. I'm playing an open hand monk, which I believe is what the SRD uh, has for its archetypes. It's monastic traditions. What I what I propose slash want to have happen with that is I'm really pleased with it. I do a fair amount of damage because monks at 5th level, when they burn their key points, they get the ability to just deal out 2 additional attacks in addition to the second attack that they gain at 5th. So at I believe it's 2nd or 3rd level, 2nd level I believe they gain the ability to go from 2 to 3 attacks per round. Because at 1st level they can do an extra attack as a bonus action as long as it's an unarmed attack. Munch punky thing. Uh, monk punchy thing. Goodness gracious, great balls of fire. And then they very quickly, as soon as they hit 2nd, they get their key abilities, which allow them to burn key to do as a bonus action. They can do 2 of that instead of 1. And then the open hand monk allows them to, which is in the SRD edit. I haven't copied and pasted it because I want to try and futz with. I want to try and make as many original, or at least of the SRD paths, I trying to alter those so that they fit my tastes more, which is a fancy way of saying I'm trying to make everything slightly more powerful, which it doesn't really need, but I like it because it feels good. Also, I want it to make sense in my campaign setting. So a lot of things are being renamed and um yeah. And because I want to work on it with you guys, I'm trying to make it SRD compliant so that I can show you my work and what I'm going with, instead of just renaming things and from the actual player's handbook and thinking I'm getting away with something, which I would not be. Some of these are going to be very similar. These the character archetypes, the class archetypes are going to be very similar to things from the book that aren't. Why is this period here? And why is this here? I don't understand. Okay, some formatting weirdness. Uh, but yeah, my problem with the monk is that it seems my interpretation of it from what I've been reading, and my group seems to have come to the same conclusion. At least my GM has. Uh, that the monk has gone from, I don't know what it was, like it was a striker technically, and it still is because I can deal out a lot of damage. But it seems to, particularly in 5th edition, at least especially if you go open hand, it's primarily an area control melee character. But that doesn't work very well because when you make one of these key attacks, the open hand allows you to do, and the open hand is SRD. I've triple checked this. The open hand allows you to knock someone prone if they fail a dex save, or if they fail a strength save, you can knock them 15 feet away from you. I have made very good use of that. My party's druid is like spike growth, and then I punch people through it, and they take automatic damage for moving through spaces. It's beautiful. We turn people into hamburger a lot using that method, and our warlock has the ability to knock people back as well. So he blasts people and knocks them back through the spike growth, and that's become our go-to move. Spike growth an area, knock people who try to get out of it back into it so that they have to walk through it to get out of it or to us, and just really ruin their day. It's great. And also, like the last thing that the open hand does with that unarmed attack, I'm doing like Tai Chi moves with my arms because it helps me think, and it helps me to think like a Kung Fu man. Yeah. So, yeah, it also allows you to prevent them from taking a reaction. So if you hit them, and that does not have a save, so if you are in trouble, you can hit them and then run away like a hero would. Like a hero. The problem with it is that obviously, like the problem I'm facing is that I can knock people down all day. We're fighting giants, I think it is. Yeah, we're fighting giants. So the knockback, we're fighting giants primarily. Obviously, there's random encounters and whatnot, but we're fighting big, strong things. So the knockback with the strength check, that's usually not going to happen. But the knockdown is useless because if there's no one in your attack lineup on your team who goes between your turn and the enemy's turn, they just stand up. So they'll just stand up. And there's no penalty for that. Part of that is to protect players from problems involving knockdown, because there's a lot of monsters that do that. But in 3rd edition, and I'm going to say that a lot in a lot of these videos, in 3.5, it was my understanding at least, that standing up from prone provokes an attack of opportunity. That does not seem to be, by written rule, the case in 5th edition. And all the classes that have abilities that knock people prone, well, those abilities are literally useless if you cannot follow up on that. Because otherwise the only thing that happens is that you provide advantage to melee attacks against that person who's knocked down. So you can, hopefully, with your first key attack, knocks them down, and your second martial arts attack from that key usage, you get advantage on. But if they succeed on that first save, then there's not a lot of point to doing anything. And when you're fighting people who have a much bigger reach than you, as a lot of monsters do, a lot of monsters are large size or carry big weapons. Like they can get at you. You're within their arm's reach, even if you knock them 15 feet away. It's a real problem. So part of that would basically just be the statement in the rules, not specifically for the monk, but in the rules, that standing up would provoke an attack of opportunity. And when I get around to touching up how my set of house rules for my campaign through the SRD, I am going to make note of that. Because there's no specific mention, there's no like list of things that provokes an attack of opportunity. They're just like, some things do, some things don't. Look them up when you do, but then you have to look up that specific action almost. So, aside from collating what provokes attacks of opportunities, I'm going to add a few more in there. Along with the disclaimer, and this is to protect players, that some of those will be made at disadvantage. Standing up from prone will provoke an attack of opportunity, but it will be at disadvantage. I think that's fine. I think that that protects players, and since I'm giving the ability to players to do something that they couldn't before, even at a disadvantage, that seems fine to me. But that's not really part of all of this. I have a concept of how the monk is going to work. And it's going to be very... The base class doesn't really conform to that, but the base class gives a lot of the base abilities that I would want from that. On top of that, I'm going to create 3 basic paths of how the monk operates. I think do I still call them monastic traditions? Yeah, I still call them that, but I'm probably going to change the name of that just to fit the campaign setting better. Basically, what's going on here is this nerd is going to have 3 class archetypes to go down, 3 paths of power, whatever. They're going to have the physical journey, which is going to be all about physical attacking. There's going to be the hidden way, which is going to be kind of ninja-y stuff. And the path of cultivation, which will be magic. It's going to be magic. Now, if you're saying, why Beltheria, you are basically taking those are already the paths that are in the player's handbook. To that I would say, yes. To an extent. These notes originally came up when all I was doing was making something for myself and my friends to use, and I was just renaming everything. Until I started checking the SRD, when I started wanting to do something more with it. Like, I wanted to hopefully distribute this in some manner someday, and to that end, I would like to legally distribute it in a way which doesn't get me sued. And this is it. At least part of it. So we're doing the development of it here, live and on camera, and that took me 20 minutes to talk about, because I got distracted by BioWare. Also, upon looking into those classes, into those archetypes more, I realized that those don't really do it for me. And as I've been writing some notes, which I've lost, I have like 5 notebooks with different sections of them over different sections of this campaign setting and game mechanics that I'm trying to add, and I've lost all of them. Or at the very least, I can never find the one that I'm looking for. Because, yeah, that's how it works. That's just the way it is. Things will never be the same. That's just the way it is. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, oh lord. One of the two. So my concept now becomes putting together a hierarchy of how these temples, these dojos across the world operate their sort of structure. And to that end, guess what we need? We need a list. Shocker, right? So I'm going to create, I'm going to try to recreate my notes that I cannot find here for you right now. And that's how the martial artist, the monk, operates. Yeah? So you have the monk, who further develops their skill by going down one of yea many paths. Let's just make this. Do I want that? I would prefer lettering. Can we do lettering? Yeah, here we go. Alright, so we have the monk, and the monk actually doesn't need that. I am a fool. So different monks come from different temple. No, I'm getting ahead of myself there. Alright, so we have our 3 paths, and the monk has to take one of these paths as they level up. It's at level 2? 3! Level 3. I don't know why I kept thinking it was 2. 2 is key. 2 is key? 2 is key. Alright. 2 is key. And 3 is when you've started really going through your path as a monk. As a martial artist, you mastered your basic techniques, and now you are at a skill level where you can start applying more advanced techniques, more advanced power. And to that end, you go down one of these 3 paths, which I will copy and paste, because I'm going to need them. Alright, so back to conceptual work here, is that different monks come from different dojos. Some of them are individual learners who've just sort of been trying what comes their way. But different temples will have typically specialized in 1 or 2 different paths. The path of cultivation, or traditions. So the path of cultivation itself is going to break down into like elemental forms. So individual temples that practice the path of cultivation may only practice one type of cultivation, for example. If that doesn't make any sense to you, that's fine. It doesn't make much sense to me either. I really wish I could write up a chart here for you. In fact, maybe we can go back into Paint. Okay, so we're in Paint, and I can start drawing up a general concept of how the world works with my mouse, so that it's terrible. Control Z. Okay. So different temples. Let's go with 1, 2, 3, 4. For example. And there are 3 paths. Each one might choose, A or B. Your A and B. Your B and C. Whoop. But you are specifically C1. And you do A and C, but you do C3. And you just do C, but you do C's 1 and 2. So typically these you can see what I'm doing here. Like A is our good friend, the physical stuff, it's is physical, B is shadows, C is B is ninja stuff, C is cultivation, the elemental powers. Which breaks down into 3 different elements in this world, is water, fire, and air. For reasons, because I like it. There will be more temples than this, but typically this is how it's going to break down. Now, the other idea I have going on is that different temples will also have their own individual styles. So Temple 1 is going to have a specialization, 2 is going to have a specialization, 3 is going to have a specialization, 4 is going to have a specialization, etc., for whatever the case may be. And I'll design those temples and their traditions and their histories, and how they fight, and all that good stuff, somewhere down the line. Maybe later on, we'll design a temple if there's time in this episode. But these numbers are going to indicate a special feat that can only be that cannot be taken at first level. For humans. Humans cannot take this feat. Basically, it's not available at first level. If for whatever reason I decide, hey, everybody gets a feat at first level anyway, and humans get 2, which would be totally broken, so I'm not going to. Where was I? Right. I was making a feat, and that feat is called Prestige Training. And what Prestige Training does is it creates, it gives you access to it basically reserves that feat slot. So whenever you would be able to gain a feat, you can take this one. You can take Prestige Training. Right there. Prestige Training. That was awful. Prestige Training. But it doesn't provide a benefit by itself. Much like the Prestige classes of oh god, I hate that that's a thing, that I can say that. Unlike the Prestige classes of 3rd edition of 3.5, or the kits of 2nd edition, and I think 4th edition also had prestige classes, but I don't know the system very well because my group never really got into 4th edition. So what these were is they were individual classes. If you're not familiar, if 5th edition is the only edition you've ever played, is they are individual sort of subclasses that have the individual particular abilities outside of the norm for regular classes. Somewhere in there, you can parse that statement to make sense. And if you can, more power to you. That's what these are. These are going to be prestige paths, which you can access by taking prestige training. Prestige training is a blank feat that does nothing except let you later gain access to a prestige class once you meet the role-playing requirements of doing so. The role-playing and game requirements of doing so. And I am going to have, for each major temple and dojo or whatever, what have you, a style of combat, which is going to be sort of like miniature classes or special archetypes, much like what we're about to develop here, what we've been talking about developing for the last 30 minutes, probably the last, whatever. And this is going to go, and a lot of these are going to be sort of allowing you to multiclass without actually multiclassing, because multiclassing is a little muddy in 5th edition, and I don't really like it, especially when it comes to spellcasters. I would much rather give you access to other classes' abilities through feats, such as some minor spellcasting ability, than to have you multiclass into that class. If that makes any sense. That said, I'm not going to ban multiclassing from my campaign because, say it with me now, players should have choices. I believe that, even though I sometimes take choices away from players. The trick is knowing when to take things away and what to take away. I'm not a master of that. I'm not even adept at it. I'm barely even proficient at it. But I do it every once in a while, and sometimes it doesn't go over badly. So if any of that made any sense, more power to you. If not, ask some questions in the comments below, and we'll make a conversation out of it. Until then, let's get back to the monk. Alright. So that explains our hierarchy. So I don't need to do it clumsily in paint I've done it clumsily in paint, so now I don't need to do it clumsily in Word. We'll still leave this alone because we don't need it. Or maybe we'll need it later. Having extra workspace, having scrap workspace is never a bad idea. So, for internal philosophical purposes of the world, the way that monks, that different monastic traditions see it, or different temples see it, different dojos, different, the way that the Wuxia world, the martial arts world views it, is that the main, way of moving through the world, getting stronger, is a journey. It's you're walking from point A to point B, and to that end, I initially renamed the archetypes to suit that end, to sort of fit that philosophical idea. So it's, instead of the way of the open hand, it's the physical journey. Instead of path of shadows, it's the hidden way. Instead of, oh goodness, what was it? Where are you, book? Stop nudging that. Instead of elemental disciples, it was the path of cultivation. But since I'm going to be altering all of that anyway, this still works. So the physical journey is for those who want to push their bodies farther. The hidden way is for those who want to sort of adopt subterfuge and sidestep all of the problems that come through their lives, and the path of cultivation is about creating a powerful and unbreakable spirit, is the concept. I'm not a philosophical guy, or rather I am, but I'm not a metaphysical, well, I am. I'm not good at what you humans refer to as emotions or being able to understand why people need to believe in some higher power. I get it. I understand that it works for people, but I don't personally get it. So, my philosophy, because I am philosophical, it turns out, is that I don't believe that it matters if there's a higher power in the universe. Because if we can't make the way ourselves, what's the point? If there's something out there that can just decide that we aren't able to do things without its will, why are we even here? That said, my addendum to my philosophy, and it sounds really, really a downer when I say my philosophy in that manner, but to me it's kind of uplifting that I believe that the human spirit is capable of doing anything, that we can think our way through any problem, that we can solve any issue that stands in our way if we just hold the course, more or less. If we find out how it works, we can solve any problem. We can learn how the universe works without being told that it's just not something that we are allowed to know. And I think that's beautiful. I think it's glorious that we can look at the universe and that we know less than 1/1000th of what the universe is. Like, we're sort of seeing beyond the veil a little more every year, and we learn more about how the universe works every year. And I think that's beautiful. The flip side to that is that I don't believe that it's necessary to believe in a higher power. But if you believe in a higher power, if you believe in God, that's your thing. Have at it. I don't care. It doesn't affect me. And that's my philosophy in life. I don't care what you do with your life. It's not my life. It's your life. That's why my monitor's a little weird. Okay. Yeah, your life is not my life. Why should I get all up in your business? You don't get in my business, I won't get in your business. As the bard said, don't start none, won't be none. You know, I do not have the ability to this is getting into places. I'm not going to get on a rant. My one mission statement for YouTube, for being online, don't get into rants that can get you in trouble. Somewhere down the line, if you can at all help it, or at the very least make it sound like it was a joke. Plausible deniability, people. That's the real philosophy folks need to live by. What that rant boiled down to was, I don't care if there's a God, but if you care that there's a God, have at it. More God for you. What the hell am I talking about? Alright. Let's have a page break. We are going to work on the physical journey. We're going to add one here, because I like to get my hands dirty. I like to get my formatting out of the way right away. Yeah. That's just, that's incorrect. What did I do? Oh, I added the wrong spot. Page break. The path of cultivation. The hidden way. Oop, too far. Physical journey. Alright, so on one of my screens, I'm going to be looking at the SRD for the open hand style. And on the other, I'm going to be working in my Word file. Took us 40 minutes to get started, right? Because I'm not a crazy person. So I'm going to be looking at the way of the open hand in the SRD on one screen, so I can get a sort of a feel for how Wizards feels that the power balance should work out, should shake out. I'm going to sort of work from that, but I'm also going to alter it. Yeah. So for starters, we are going to work on what happens when you go down the physical journey. Now, physical journey's first sort of thing, or the way of the open hand, the way that works in the SRD, according to the System Reference Document 5.1, which was the most up to date that I could find, at least when I downloaded it. Maybe there's a new one. Maybe I should look at that before I start talking again. Alright, Systems Reference Document. Nope, 5.1. Okay, good. 5.1, including the open game license. I don't quite understand what all of it means, but basically what I'm hearing here is I'm good to go. Yeah, according to what I'm seeing, I should be good to go. Now that I'm seeing a lot of these facts and disclaimers, I don't know. Okay, it's fine. Everything's fine here. Generally speaking, everything should be fine. All appendices, yeah, alright. We're good. As far as I can tell, we're good. So, physical journey, way of open hand. Way of the open hand is like, hey, when you get into it, you get these 3 abilities when you hit a creature with one of your Flurry of Blows attacks, which is the you expend a key and you get to hit 2 times instead of with a martial arts attack instead of just one as a bonus action. Bonus action, spend key, hit 2 times with the martial arts attack. Sounds good to me. That's fine. That's part of how the monk works. I'm good with that. NBD Pro. Having played some Way of the Open Hand Monk. Itchy. Way of the Open Hand Monk, I ran into some issues regarding some of these, but they're okay in general. I would like to add some more specific statements to this. In fact, I'm gonna copy and paste from the SRD a few times here just to sort of see what we're working with, and you can see what I'm working with, and everything will be fine. So, you know what? Just the text, please. So this is what it means to be a third level way of open hand monk in 5th edition. It gives you these abilities that I talked about before. Your save is based on your key abilities from the core class, which is fine. It's like 8 plus proficiency modifier plus your wisdom, which is a good spread. If you have a good wisdom, you'll have decent saves. It sort of matches up with how the wizard works, but it's fine. The problem here is I would like to make it so that these abilities can go off a little more often. When I was initially looking it up, it seemed as though you wouldn't have enough key for the way that the way of the open hand works in the core rules. But having played it, way of open hand is actually quite economical. So is the Path of Shadows or whatever it is. The core books ninja stuff, which I'm not gonna write down because, or even really talk about all that much because it's, I don't know. I don't want to say the specifics of it for legal purposes. But what it rolls out to is you get the ability to sort of turn invisible, teleport a little bit. If you're familiar with the 3rd edition prestige class of the Shadow Dancer, that's pretty much what the Way of Shadow is in the core rulebook. Although its final abilities aren't all that great, which is fine. It's whatever. Anyhow, for my purposes, this ability is actually quite fine. I might keep open hand pretty much the same as the physical journey, and then alter it as I make the other paths or the other monastic traditions. Because I'll be real honest with you, I don't see that big of a problem with it, except that as I make new stuff, things tend to get a little powerful, a little too powerful sometimes. Like, I got really into doing the barbarian. Barbarian. Oh, anyway, I got really, really big into making the Dave class, and it's, I ended up creating one path for it. I modified the basic class, the basic archetype that's provided from the SRD to fit my purposes a little more. And I made one that's like an anti-magic guy, and it's not very good, but I think it's okay to have a sort of hyper-specific path like that, or hyper-specific archetype like that, and have it be a little bit underpowered if there's equipment support or otherwise role-playing support for it in world. And I'll probably go into that more when I do a barbarian video. Barbarian. But for the most part, looking back over the SRD for the Way of the Open Hand, I'm okay with it. I mean, it seems like playing it seems a little underpowered, but that's mostly because you don't have a way of following up when you make some of these special attacks. Like when you knock someone prone, and I discussed this earlier, you can't sort of kick their ass for standing back up. Once they're knocked down, they can just get back up again, and you ain't never going to keep them down. You're basically just pissing the night away. As for the knockback, it's really only useful against weak guys, things that don't have a strength saving throw. But for the most part, those guys are going to be ranged characters anyway, so knocking them back doesn't do you a lot of good. And the reaction is the only one that is hands down useful, because you can do it and then you can get out if you're getting hurt. Got a hair in my throat. Ugh. It's like on my tongue, and it's tickling my uvula. Oh, that is the worst. Ugh. Anyhow, what were we talking about? Alright, so the basic idea, I like this, but I don't think it fits with my concept of that. I don't feel that it works with that sort of wuxia story of the kung fu men meeting up at the tea house and getting into a brawl, you know? It's not very Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. It's close, but it's not quite there. The monk in general sort of lets you do some of the movement stuff, but the paths as written in the book don't let you do a lot of the cool stuff. Like, Quivering Palm is the top ability, quote unquote top ability, of the 3.5 monk, which was basically, it was the death touch. Which is pretty rad, don't get me wrong. But I honestly feel that the death touch probably works better for a shadowy ninja assassin type character. So I feel that works better for my hidden way than it does for the physical attack. So that's not going to work for me. And according to the SRD, there's a self heal, which is fine. I think that's okay. Being able to heal yourself as an action 3 times your monk level, once per long rest, basically, that's okay. That's fine, because you get that at 6th, which means initially you can heal 18, and it goes up by 3 each level. That's fine. I like that. So the initial 2 abilities seem fine. At the very least, Wholeness of Body is really solid, because it lets you knit yourself back together with your ki. But you don't spend your ki, it's just sort of, you manipulate the flow in your body. And that's what the physical journey is. It's about powering up the body. Whereas the Way of Shadow is about cutting your or what do I call it? The Hidden Way is about moving yourself sort of to the side of the physical world and moving through it. And the Path of Cultivation is about Dragon Ball Z stuff, basically. I want that to be the I shoot fireballs out of my hands one. And I've basically just been retreading for almost an hour now. If you're still here, congratulations. Golf clap for you. That was a golf clap. Not something else. Get your mind out of the gutter. So, I'm going to go back to the SRD. I'm going to go back to the SRD. And I'm going to just copy and paste every damn thing of it. And we're going to cut out what we don't like. Oh, come on. Formatting. And we'll cut out what we don't like, and everything else will sort of fall into place, yeah? So, wholeness of body is fine. Tranquility is from the SRD. And from the core rulebook, it lets you go into sanctuary. So you basically, nothing can attack you because you are so serene and at peace with yourself that everything is just like, no. And they have trouble hitting you. Until you throw a punch, basically. Which kind of makes it useless, and we're getting rid of it. So we're just gonna call this a placeholder for now. Alright. Quivering Palm is fine, but again, that doesn't really work with this path. So I'm going to move Quivering Palm over to my ninja assassin sort of path. Which is pretty good. It's fine. I like it. It's a death touch. The ninja with the death touch, that's crazy, right? And we're just gonna copy this. And we're gonna use that as the same for our formatting because, I don't know, seems fine to me. We're gonna call you placeholder as well for now. But you have a space because I like you. You hear that, other placeholder? I don't like you as much. That's mean. That's not me. Goodness gracious. So we're gonna borrow from Jade Empire. Jade Empire was pretty formative in my mind when it comes to how you would put Kung Fu into game mechanics. It wasn't the greatest, but it had some neat stuff for it. I would like to have seen it be a little bit more modular than it was, because if I remember right, and I might not be, you could only really do one style at a time, maybe a few things from one or two different styles, or I'm entirely wrong. But I would, if they ever get around to making a sequel to that, I would like them to mix and match that a lot more. I vaguely recall being able to mix in some moves, individual moves from different styles and making it your own, but generally speaking, you were only ever doing one thing at a time. And it also had a morality system which was totally stupid. And while they said it wasn't good and evil, it was aggressive and serene or whatever, it was good and evil. It was being a nice guy or being a complete dillhole. There's no in between. You either are one or the other. And they described those as being the way of the open hand and the way of the closed fist. And one was about redirection and softer strikes, and the other one was like debilitating strikes, and the other one was just, I'm gonna hit you as hard as I can, and it's your job to not break. Pretty wild. I want to sort of fit that in as well. I would like to make it so that when you choose the physical journey, you have to choose between open hand and closed fist. And that's going to make your difference between, even that way you can get a little bit more customization even in your archetype. I really like doing that. In fact, for the Dave class, I didn't do that correctly. I went overboard on one of them, and it's very modular, but in some ways there are modules of it that are much better than others, and there's really only one or two really ideal paths to go down. And I'll show you the barbarian someday. Don't worry about that. It'll happen. It'll happen. It will happen eventually. So I'm actually just going to copy this. And we're going to use that as our basis for what we're doing. And to that end, we're going to create my old friend a list. We're going to go down to the bottom. And we're going to get into list mode. Back into list mode, I should say. So, let's get lists going for everybody. Make sure everybody's got a Zima. No. You are a different list, friend. How do I make you a different list? There we go. That seems to have done it. I have tricked the system into being my bitch. No, don't do that. Yes, okay. So, the physical journey is going to start by choosing between open hand, ooze, choose between open hand or closed fist. And open hand, to that end, is going to be all about status and, basically status effects. It's going to be sort of damaging, but it's mostly going to be about controlling your opponent. Whereas the closed fist is going to be all those, like, you know when you watch an anime and the person does like a flying axe kick and the person they're fighting does that like overhand both their arms up and it catches it and they seem okay, but there's a slight breaking sound and then the ground gives out underneath them. That's the stuff that I want. I want this to be over the top physical destruction of the landscape, raw power. Yeah. How to regulate those becomes the question. Yes, it does. Because the way it stands, I only have 3 real slots available for the progression of the monk, or for the progression of the archetypes. And of this, what do I want to do first? Let's work on the open hand. Let's work on the first level of the open hand, because it's going to be first, 11th, and 17th abilities. Okay, so first level of it is, let's make it pretty much the same as the open hand from the SRD. I think that's fine. Oh dear, what have I done? Oh, you're gonna get all weird about my formatting, aren't you? Okay, there we go. In fact, strictly speaking, this line can disappear. And these lines can further shift to the side. Oh yeah, formatting. Oh goodness. I think that's fine. I think that's pretty okay. I would like to change the pushback of it, though. I think I'll move the pushback to closed fist, because that feels more its thing, the power to just knock someone way back. I think basically tripping someone, preventing reaction, that's fine. But I would like an actual status effect to go in. So I'm going to look at the SRD, and I'm going to look at some fun status effects. Some fun conditions. Where are you at? Ooh, if you want to go and take a ride with me, 3 women in the back of the say, why do I live this way? Must be the money. I'm gonna learn that song one of these days, I swear. Diseases, raps. Okay, these are in a different spot than they are in the book, so I'm just gonna whip out my book here. So, blind, always fun. Charm, little powerful for this thing. Plus, punching someone in the sternum and then having that mean that they're under your control, more or less. That's a little much. Deafened, that doesn't really do it for me. Moving into a grapple, that might be fun. Like allowing you to make a grappling maneuver at the end of that hit, that could be neat. I definitely don't want to go with stunned, because that's just a core monk feature. And I don't want to touch the main classes too much. I would rather those be mostly unchanged so that I don't so that there's not too much shock from players switching to my campaign and away from my campaign. My house rules are fine, but I don't want to go too overboard with it. I would rather use custom archetypes and then just have players deal with that. Already have something that knocks prone. Restrained might be interesting. Reduces speed to 0. Can't benefit from any bonus to its speed. Basically, you lock down their movement for a turn. That might be fun. I think that might be what I go with. Or we could go real wild and have it act as like a key poison, which is a disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks. Hopefully all this is actually in the SRD. I've seen it before, I just forgot where it was in it. So now I'm reading from the book. Goodness. Maybe I should look again. I just don't want to spend too much time on an entirely different... Oh, goodness. That doesn't matter. That doesn't do anything. Fast spells, maybe? Spellcasting. Combat. Yeah, all these conditions are labeled in the SRD somewhere. I just can't find it right now. Because they moved everything around to weird places. And they don't have bookmarks in it. Let me check my online resource. Condition summary. Yeah, all these are in there. Okay. So yeah, maybe something that results in the poison condition. Okay. How do we want to write this down? If it fails, you would, okay. It must make a Constitution saving throw or be put. If it fails, it becomes poisoned until the end of your next turn. I think that's okay. I think that's really powerful, actually. I think it's certainly more powerful than a 15-foot knockback, at least for general control ability. Which is not to say that we are not going to be doing that with the strength guy, or with the closed fist. And we'll touch on this as we go. What am I at? Get rid of this window. Holy shit. I've taken entirely too long on this. We might have to revisit the monk again. Or this might go long. Wouldn't that be exciting? Took an hour to get started. Let's say... Let's go ahead and copy and paste again. Because that's the way we do it. This is how we do it! And I want similar option sort of types for the closed fist. But I also want to push that whole I'm really gosh darn strong angle. And unfortunately, that means we're really only keeping the strength thing, the hit, knock people away from you power. So we've shifted that along, and we're gonna spread this out. So basically, what I've started doing is I've taken the Way of the Open Hand from the player's handbook, from the SRD, and I have shifted it into two parts of a single archetype. Because I am a madman with dreams of a milk-proof robot. The question then becomes, how do we make abilities that aren't totally busted at 3rd level, but still scream, I do mundo damage and am the strongest guy on the block? The knockback is a good way to do that. But I don't really know where to go from there. If I can get at least one other option for the closed fist, I think that would be fine, as long as we make up for it later. To that end, I think what I would like to do is maybe actually only have one other power in the closed fist, but alter it so that it's when you make a martial arts attack, full stop. So if you spend ki, you get more martial arts attacks, which is good, and you get more, oomph to throw around. But if you only have knockback, that wouldn't be worth it either. Maybe I'll leave it to Flurry of Blows for now. We'll revisit that concept. For the time being, I'm thinking let's go with... Alright, oh man. Do I have to start watching a bunch of AMVs about not that kind of AMV, the YouTube friendly ones, not a particular award show for other stuff. Do I just have to start watching badass anime fight scenes for a while? I don't really have the time for that. So open hand has control and debuffs right now. It controls your movement, it controls your positioning, or it controls whether or not you can hit them, it controls whether or not you're on the ground, and with the alteration I'm making to by a tripping, by the alteration that I'm going to make to people being knocked prone standing up, that alone will give that more power, even if it is an attack at disadvantage. Where does that leave us? Maybe the ability to knock out some more power? Well, I just had a really weird moment of deja vu looking at the screen. Because I know I haven't made it. Oh, you know what? I made a bunch of videos before to this extent, but they got messed up in processing. Hopefully that doesn't happen this time. I lost a bunch of work. Let's go. Huh. I need to look something up. I like the idea of striking a piece of equipment, damaging it, and providing a negative until it gets repaired. So like you hit and you chip a sword so that it deals like -1 damage. I think that's pretty neat. Or you go up to armor, and that's pretty rad. Where is my mouse? Let me just see how much of what I'm looking at here agrees with that. Alright, let's do it. I just, while I was looking through some rules, came up with a concept, and it just as easily left me as I went, oh, I got an idea. Goodness, my brain sometimes. Oh, that was it. When you strike someone who has a resistance to the damage type that you're dealing with your martial arts attack, so bludgeoning, basically non-magical bludgeoning, at least early on non-magical bludgeoning. You can roll your damage die twice and take the higher of it. That seems okay. That seems fine to me. It's not really an option as much as it's just a thing that happens, but, you choose. I guess that would mean that if you came up against something that has resistance to your martial arts attacks, you would be choosing between knocking it back or dealing slightly more damage. That doesn't really work very well because it's 5th that you gain from D4 to D6. With resistance in play, you're only ever really looking at an increase of 1 damage, at least on average, to something that has resistance. And not a lot has resistance to just plain old bludgeoning, at least to my knowledge, until much later. But by then you will have your martial arts attacks treated as magic for the purpose of damage resistances. So that instantly became not useful. Huh. How do we typically translate raw power? Aside from just more damage. Which I could do. I could just give the closed fist extra damage. Just count it as a die type higher. So it would be an early buff to power, and it would be buffed even more when you level up. Let me look at my progression. Yeah, so you would 2 levels earlier get a D4 or get a D6. But then you would have to wait longer before you and then when it becomes a D6 it would go a D8. Which means that 17th that would translate into turning into a D12. Overall, I don't hate that. If instead of a knockback, if instead of all the stuff that the options that the open hand does, that the closed fist just does raw power, I think that'd be okay. Or maybe if we provided the option to increase by a die type, or knock them back. That way even the closed fist gets a little bit of control, but it's still translated as I've got the power. And it's translated as either collecting the power in your body entirely and reinforcing yourself to hit someone in the sternum really hard, or to hit them hard enough to knock them off balance. So when you make a martial arts attack, you either choose more damage or the knockback. Huh. And on average, that would really only increase damage by 1. Which is kinda crazy. But it would also scale as you level up. which is fun. I think I'm going to go with that. So that's how we're going to do that. You will choose to either increase your martial arts damage by 1 die type, or a knockback. How... I think I would like to make a third option for this, but it's taken me 15 minutes almost to come up with that nonsense, which is kind of a cop-out. And it's not that bad. I mean, it's pretty nuts. Let's get this straight. I am under no illusion that this is not powerful. I am under the illusion that you have to spend ki in order to do this. Because I am going to stick with the Flurry of Blows thing. And I need to change this description to sort of match with that. But yeah, when you make a Flurry of Blows attacks, one of your martial arts, you can do one of these 3 things. How do we translate power? I still like the idea of raw power, of I hurt you real bad. I like the idea of debilitating the enemy with this blow. I just don't want it to become, well, isn't the Way of the Open Hand supposed to be about the sort of ki strikes that debilitate the enemy? Well, yes, they are. And, well, what's the difference? This one lets you do this similar things, but also you can choose to do damage if you don't want to do those. And this is where I get into the part that I was talking about earlier, where I'm bad at this. I get real excited about one thing, and it balloons out of control and leaves everything else not quite as powerful in comparison. How about I do like the idea of a debilitating blow. But if open hand, and I know I'm repeating myself here, but this is how to think. This is my brainstorming process. If open hand is about control, how do we translate raw power so that it's not control? And not just extra damage? I do not know. I'm sort of mentally rolling through the fight scenes in the 1 to try and figure out what's going on there, to try and parse from Jet Li what a really hard blow to the stomach does to a guy. And the more I think about it, the more I think that the dexterity save to be knocked prone should go to the closed fist. Or we can turn closed fist into area control rather than enemy control. So while the open fist or the open hand will be about controlling how your enemy moves or how your enemy fights your target, by reducing their reactions or knocking them to the ground and forcing them to stand up or otherwise crawl away. I think that perhaps now this is going to be a wild one. Remember how I was talking about earlier those wacky anime fight scenes where the person goes for that overhead axe kick and the enemy blocks it, but the power is so immense that it shatters the floor underneath them? I like the idea of hitting the enemy so hard that it warps the terrain. But that's incredibly powerful. So I think what I'm gonna do instead is a strike that sort of oh no, because that goes into personal debuffs. I'm trying to avoid personal debuffs with the closed fist. That's gonna be the open hands thing. You know what? Screw it. Let's do it. Uh, Alright, this is gonna be weird. So the concept will be that they will make a save, and we will make it a Constitution save. It'll be about absorbing the blow. Except that it's going to be if it succeeds, it takes half damage. Now, Beltheria, you might be asking, what does taking half damage have to do with raw power? Well, if it succeeds on the check, it takes half damage, but the force of the blow will translate to the area around the target, turning it into a 10-foot radius area of difficult terrain. There's some logistics problems with this, obviously, which is why I was trying to avoid doing it, at the very least this early, but I really like the concept of it, and why not, right? And some of the logistics problems with this are that, what if you're in like an inn or a house on the second floor and you do this, well, then logics come into play. And I wouldn't want to do this every time necessarily. You could just say that the shock causes the wood to splinter heavily, so you have to watch your step. But if you're wearing boots, well, that wouldn't do anything. Or maybe it ruptured it and you have to be careful of your feet falling through the floor. Depending on the scenario, I as a GM might even say that you just knock them through the floor. There's all kinds of interpretations on how to work this, but in the general scenario, you upset the land in the area. Like, flagstones break and upturn if you're on the street. If you're out in the wilds, the force, like, cracks the land, a la the anime fight scene. That sort of cool stuff. That's not spelled right. Yeah, there we go. So now, this person that you've struck, if they're actually powerful enough to stand against you, oh wow, this actually leads to how useful this is. And it's a subject that needs to be brought up. If they are powerful enough to succeed on this check, then they're not really affected by this, because they're probably powerful enough to stand toe to toe with you. They're probably a tank. And you don't want to be next to the tank anyway. You would want to use this to corral people in. Obviously, it would prevent the tank from running away if they become low on health. But generally speaking, someone with a low constitution score probably isn't going to make this save. So what do you do on fail? On fail, let's say that they take full damage from the attack, but their speed is reduced to 0 for the round. That's not the best, because I'm still folding in on the open hands territory. But I think it's better than nothing. Because on a failed, if they just take the damage, the fact that it has its special effect on a success is weird. And I like weird, but I also don't like breaking my own rules too much. And there's nothing saying that this can't be a thing. There's a lot of effects that sort of do this. But those are rare. Those are exceptions to the rule. So those break the rule often for a particular point, but you don't want to do that too often. And I feel that making this a basic ability will make that happen more often, and set too large of a precedent that they'll always be looking for this sort of thing. Perhaps we can get around this. We make it on a success, it takes half damage. But if it fails, Then the footing thing happens, and they take full damage. So if they succeed, they absorb the blow. They absorb the blow and they take half damage. But if it fails the save, then it rocks through their body, it deals full damage, and it ruptures the ground around them. That's pretty neat. That's pretty rad. I like that. It's pretty busted in its own way, but I like it. Uh, Goodness, this is taking entirely too long. 40 some minutes to get this. So, let's go back up here, and let's get our formatting in. So, starting when you choose this tradition at 3rd level, copy, paste, you must choose between the open hand technique. Technique! In fact, let's capitalize these so that we know that they're a thing. Open, hand, closed, fist. Techniques! So, open hand technique is you manipulate your enemy's ki when you harness your own. Come on, man. They gotta be like that. Oh, this formatting is weird. I'll get my actual formatting on later. You don't need to see all of this. But, yeah, that's fine. Then we go down here, and we grab what we've done with the closed fist. There we go. Sort of good to go. It's fine. I'll clean this up later. And we'll clean this up too. We'll make it thematically appropriate. Alright, so instead of manipulating the key inside of your enemy, Closed Fist manipulates the key inside of yourself. Get more oomph, more bang for your buck. So when you harness your key, you, what do we say, can push your attacks to greater effect. Yeah, alright, that works. Whenever you hit a creature with one of the attacks granted by your flurry of blows, you may gain one of the following effects on that attack. Increase your martial arts damage by 1 die type. Increase, they must make a strength save or be pushed away. Alright, there we go. Target must make a strength saving throw. If it fails, push it up to 15 feet away from you. And if target must make a constitution saving throw. If it succeeds, takes half damage from the attack. If it fails, the blow damages the area. Neat. That only took us 40 minutes. 50 minutes. Holy cow. I'm good at this, you guys. Wholeness of body is okay. I think it needs something else. I would like wholeness of body to maybe refresh an amount of ki as well. Just so that you can really push your combat to crazy levels and go wild with it. Just go absolutely bug nuts crazy. But that feels like it might be too much. I've been kicking around a few ideas for it, but I've lost it along the way because I was trying to focus on the core ability, the base ability of the path, which has now split into 2. Goodness gracious, right? Let's talk about. Let's skip that for now. We'll skip that for now. Healing is fine. Healing is fine. In comparison to some of the things that the basic ability could do, that's not great, but being able to heal yourself is always good. Yeah, I think that's fine. So, placeholder number 1. We need to split this again between 2 things. We have Close Fist and Open Hand. Now, if I go back to the SRD, I don't have a lot of time here. We might go long on this just because I'm having fun. I know I said that these would be 2 hours each, but this one might go a little long. I don't necessarily want to do a Monk Part 2, although it looks like we may have to. So looking back at the SRD, come on. L-M-N-O-P, U-R-S-T-U-D, Paladin, there we go. Monk. Tranquility, that was not thematically appropriate. That might be something that I sort of shift over to cultivation, because that's supposed to be about spirit control of the area, or spirit and control of ki outside of the body. Basically, I'm reading this comic right now that's got me really, really kicked into this, and there's a concept between external ki and internal ki, and internal ki buffs the body, external ki is stuff that lets you rip apart the landscape without touching it. Kind of stuff. And that's sort of where I'm going with this. So, what do I do? Oh god. No idea. No idea. But I think we make it a single thing that happens. I don't think we add options on 11. I think closed fist and open hand are the way that you want to go for both of these. And I'm going to have to go through here and reformat for alphabetization purposes. But for now, I can get a jump on this. Yeah, okay. I know earlier I was open hand, closed fist, but for alphabetization purposes, it'll be closed fist, open hand. It's good to be as you want to be as thorough as possible when you're, or as consistent as possible when you're formatting things. It's okay to not necessarily alphabetize for this exact purpose. Like, I could have it open hand, closed fist, as long as I regularly say it in that order. But if I was jumping between open hand, closed fist, open hand, that's not good. And to save time, I may do that now, but I'm not going. I'm going to do the thing. So we're just gonna do our flowchart here. Oh man, I only have 4 minutes. Okay, let's think of a thing. Think, 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 think. Get your Winnie the Pooh on, Beltheria. Think, think, think. Oh bother. This is gonna take a while. We may have to come in for a second one actually, and I may have a lot of fun with that. In fact, I think I may do a second one, and I'll try my best to schedule them to go up at the same, not the same time, but one right after the other. That would be exciting, right? I think that would be exciting. Okay, well, how's about we go ahead, say that for the purpose of the closed fist, at 11th level, you do something really cool. Damn it! Ah, I'm tilting. I'm tilting. I can't think of anything. Oh, I'm revealing myself as a fraud. And in order to help myself a little more, we're just going to do some of this action. Just to keep everything on the same page. While I work on it. In fact, I am going to end this a moment early because I don't want to cut in the middle of a thought when I have it. I'm going to think on this before I start up the next recording so that I can just start kicking into it. Really, really, really get into it. Maybe actually write my notes down and make them available. And make them available to myself. Oh, goodness. So stay tuned for more. Drop some suggestions down in the comments. I think this is going to be really good back and forth on how to develop this material because I'm new to 5th edition. We've been playing for a while, but I'm new to it. So you guys go ahead and you're not going to have to wait any amount of time for this sort of feedback. I'm going to have to wait because I have to wait for this to go up. So the next video is not going to receive any of your suggestions if you leave any. But somewhere down the line, I'm going to do a revisit to everything that I've talked about so that I can get some feedback from you and let you know what that feedback is. And I'm going to try to incorporate some of your suggestions. Yeah. I see you in literally no time at all. It'll probably be an hour for me, but it'll be longer than that for you. Shorter than that, even. Because if you're watching this, you should be able to just click on to the next one, and there won't even be an interruption for you.